I have no script, I have no intro. This is the Fujifilm X Pro 1, probably the worst, ugliest, most beautiful camera that you can buy right now. It's not worth it, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. So I've had a lot of people ask me questions because I've been shooting with the X Pro 1 for a couple months. The biggest question is, hey, is it worth it? Hey, what's it like? Hey, is the sensor really amazing? Hey, is it the same as shooting an X Pro 2 or an X Pro 3, or does it make you want to switch this camera more often than not? And a lot of those questions are answered with a hard no. It's kind of slow, kind of clunky. Now when it came out, top of the line camera, top of its class, especially for the EVF, the speed, the megapixel size, I mean, it really was doing something. When it comes to just right now, it's not the greatest experience. It's something that you have to be really patient with. It lags after you take a shot, of course, because there's not a lot of memory inside of there. Not a great fast processor. For the day it was great. For right now, it's not. The sensor is just fine. The colors that come out of it are great. They're amazing, especially whenever you're pairing with some nice manual focus lenses that are sharp and have great color rendition. It's fantastic. But if you introduce any amount of low light, you really have to know how to shoot a camera like this in order to be successful. Now, whenever you look around this camera, you're getting your same old from Fujifilm in the X Pro line. Of course, you have your electronic viewfinder and your optical viewfinder hybrid, which is the main kind of pull to this. Of course, you have manual, you have your continuous, and you have your single autofocus. Manual autofocus is what I'm mostly using this with. I was pairing it with a 23mm f1.4, and I'll pair it with a 23 f2. It does great when shooting with manual focus lenses. I mean, it's not stuttering, it's not really having to hunt, especially when you have a well enough lit subject. So it's not bad, but at the same time, it's just that damn processing the camera has to do. There is a nice lag after it takes a shot. I'll even be able to show you. So if I just take a shot here, see that red blinking? Not able to shoot again until that's done. Now again, I'm not blaming the camera because back in the day it was great. And if you're someone shooting portraits, street photography, this is gonna be just fine. And whenever it comes to a continuous shooting mode, let's say I wanna put the drive somewhere high, like 6 frames per second, 6 or 3 frames per second, that was great. Back in whenever this came out, it does a pretty good job. But that's where my buffer fills up. Not too bad, nothing really hurting. It can get the job done. In fact, whenever I was shooting with the Austin FC, this is my B cam, and I'm able to shoot that exact same way in continuous, either at 3 frames or at 6 frames. I'm getting my shots, I'm making sure I hit critical focus because I'm using manual focus lenses. And when I'm using autofocus lenses, it still works the same. But there is just a little lag behind it. It literally just got done buffering all of those images. So again, it's a great, fantastic little camera. It's not so much like it's a fantastic beginner camera. It's a great camera for anyone. Honestly, I would recommend this to anyone who just wanted to shoot a Fujifilm camera. If you wanted to walk around one, if you wanted one to throw around your neck and not really care about what happens, one that you can maybe beat around. This one right here that I have has some love marks on it. It was shown some love by the previous owners, of course, as well as by me. And it's just a fantastic camera. Again, it's ugly, it's slow, but it is damn beautiful. One of the things that really draws me to Fujifilm is the kind of connection I have with the cameras. This is one of those cameras where I have a connection that is more or less on the sentimental side than anything. You see, when I first started out with Fujifilm, I didn't have an X Pro body. I had an X-T3, and I just loved the feeling of those dials and the feeling of kind of being one with the camera, not so much slowing down, but just feeling like I had to be more intentional, or I had the option to be more intentional. Not everything felt like I was just pushing buttons on the back and front. Going to auto even felt a lot better than doing it on my Sony or my Canon cameras. But by the time that I got into the X Pro line, it's been amazing. I've had the X Pro 2, I've had the X Pro 1, I've had the X Pro 3, and I'm currently using it right now in conjunction with this. And it's a great tool to have, the X Pro line of cameras. It's something that just really draws you in. Now, it's not a true rangefinder experience, but it's something that I just really enjoy, whether it's framing up right here with an EVF or switching to the OVF and just saying, I guess. I'm still able to frame everything up. There's still a lot of amazing features in here, like I'm able to adapt these manual focus lenses and still be able to tell the camera what lens I'm shooting. That way it can adjust the frame lines accordingly. And it is very accurate, especially if I'm out here shooting in, let's say, zone focus, it's gonna be great. Now, that's the only way you can use the OVF, but even with the EVF, it's fantastic. It's sharp enough, it's clear enough. Only problem is, it doesn't have peaking with different colors other than white. So when you want to focus up, and you want to use manual focus lenses and you want to use a peaking, it's not going to really work out that well because again, it's white and it's kind of hard to see. Some that I wish that they would update and just put the red in there since I know it can do it, but it's totally fine. Now this camera does have some things on there that I really wish that Fujifilm would start reincorporating with its X Pro cameras. Number one, the biggest thing is the fact that it has a D-pad. Every camera needs a D-pad. I'm fine with the joystick, I think it's cute, but it's too small, it feels like it can break and it digs into my thumb. I wish we could just go back to a D-pad. That's all that I really need, that's all that I really want, and honestly, if they would just do that, I would be so much happier. Now talking about the sensor, this was fantastic. The sensor in this, Fujifilm's original X-Trans sensor, is amazing. It's fun, I love the colors, I love the flatness of the image. You could really tell what they were going for at the beginning. They were going for more of a feel with images, trying to emulate basically what was in CCD and film over sharpness and clarity, which they're pushing more towards on their newer sensors. It doesn't mean the newer sensors are bad, it doesn't mean one's better than the other, but you're gonna get a really nice, as many would say, filmic look with this. The roll-offs, the way it adjusts to highlights, everything is great. It even gives the appearance and kind of the feel of better dynamic range, even though it isn't better at dynamic range, but it's just a fantastic sensor. Now, when you're shooting in low light situations, it does tend to fall apart a little bit. But if you're someone like me who doesn't mind digital grain because grain is just part of the image, no matter what you're doing, if there's grain, it's just part of the image, suck it up. I kind of embrace it. Now, one of the ways that I like to shoot this camera is completely in black and white mode. A lot of times I'll just put this in JPEG since it only has one card slot instead of RAW plus JPEG, and I'll just go out and shoot. And I love to shoot in black and white. I've got my own T-Max recipe for this that I got off Fuji X Weekly, and I just go for it. It does a great job. It does a great job in low light. It does a great job in harsh sunlight. It just does a great job, period. And again, one of the things that I have to attribute to that is the fact that it has amazing roll-off from highlights. There's a nice little bloom in a spread, no matter what lens I'm using, whether it's the 23-1.4, the 23-f2, the Zeiss 35mm f2.8, the 50-140, or even this Voigtlander 21mm f4. It's just a joy to use. I haven't had an issue with the sensor whatsoever. It's fun. It creates great images. They're images that look and feel nostalgic, but also very warm and very inviting. It's exactly what you're looking for. And if you're someone who's a film head and you want to do digital because film costs too much, I got this for $325. And to me, that's a no-brainer great deal. Get you a nice earth adapter and adapt your like a M mount glass, your Nikon F mount glass, your Contax glass, your Yashica glass. You can adapt anything to these Fujifilm cameras with an earth adapter that's only $31. So for a total of about 360 or so bucks, I was able to start adapting the lenses that I had purchased for my X Pro 3, as well as native Fujifilm glass, which is amazing. Now, there are gonna be some drawbacks to doing that. Number one, I'm not gonna have any EXF data, or however you pronounce it, XF data, whenever I have these lenses on, which isn't fun. It's not really gonna do anything for me with giving me information on the very front, and ISO becomes a bitch whenever you're trying to adjust with this, just because there is no ISO dial. You have to adjust it here on the back scroll wheel or put it in auto like I do. But if you're someone who doesn't mind that and you don't mind the camera doing a little bit of work for you, it truly is a great experience. This is a truly great camera, whether you're shooting portraits, street photography, things where you don't really need to be shooting at a high pace. This is even a great walk around camera. This is a camera that I don't prefer it over my X Pro 3, but every once in a while I want to show it some love and I'll use it to go shoot some street photography. Now, one last thing about this camera before I let you guys go is that this is gonna be a camera that in a few years, we're gonna look back at this and say, wow, this was just a great beginning to Fujifilm's run. Now, I believe that Fujifilm will continue to get better. I'm excited about the X Pro 4 and what it means for us. Potentially a stacked APS-C sensor, backside illuminated, that's gonna maybe take us into the new foray of stacked sensors in all the Fujifilm cameras, or whether it's a 40 megapixel sensor in that camera, regardless, there's gonna be a lot of great things. But it's nice to pay ode or homage or whatever the term is to an OG. It's nice to put respect where respect is due and put respect on the name of the Fujifilm X Pro 1. Even if it isn't the greatest camera ever, and even if it breaks down in low light, even if it's slow as hell, even if it looks like shit and kind of beat up, And even if it doesn't have great peaking for manual focus purposes or have any of the bells and whistles whenever it comes to film simulations that you're able to pull out and fix like later generations of Fujifilm cameras, this thing is fantastic. It's great as a monochrome camera, it's great as a walk around camera, and more than anything, it's great as a make money and portrait camera because at the end of the day, it takes photos. So with that being said, do I think this camera is one that everyone should go out there and buy? Hell to the no. I really don't think so. A lot of you guys have gear acquisition syndrome and you really would go out here and buy this camera whenever you have 4 other cameras sitting in your home. But is this a camera that I would tell people that they'd regret purchasing? No. As long as you know what you're getting into, I don't think so at all. The build quality is great. Again, the images look fantastic. And if you can get over some of the limitations that it has, you're not really gonna be wanting anything. Photography first and foremost is about the photographer and how the photographer adjusts to the gear that he has. If you're shooting film and you can make great things happen with film by pushing it and whatnot, do the exact same thing with a Fujifilm X Pro 1. You can shoot in JPEG, add your grain, have some fun with some monochrome black and white, or have some fun with basically everything but the newest simulations, including classic chrome, but you get the point. You can still make things happen. You can still make a Kodak Gold simulation, and you can still have fun shooting on the street. Just shoot JPEG and pretend like you're shooting on film. At the end of the day, I'm just paying respect to this camera because it's damn good, especially for the price that I got it at. Would I pay $500? No. But would I be happy with this camera if it was stuck with me for the rest of its life and for the rest of mine? Yeah, because good Lord, is it ugly. Good Lord, is it slow, but damn, is it beautiful. Take it light, but take it. Have a good one.